Okay, so these are my answers for my physics questions. Okay, so firstly, when a leaf is falling, it encounters air resistance and it encounters the downward force of gravity. Air resistance is what's slowing it, so it doesn't just accelerate into the ground as fast as it can, and gravity is what's pulling it towards the ground. Okay, so I could not find a clear answer on whether or not an acorn accelerates to terminal velocity, and that's probably because it will never have enough time to reach terminal velocity. So when it's falling at a rate of 9.8 meters per second. But most trees aren't that tall, so it probably doesn't have enough time to reach terminal velocity. And I linked a website that shows how fast it's falling, like its average velocity, but I truly couldn't find anything that detailed it reaching terminal velocity. Okay, so leaves have elasticity, but not in the ways that you would typically think, like a pool ball. Leaves have shape memory, so they can grow back to their original shape over time. And that's what you see when like leaves fall in the fall, and then they grow back the same in the spring. And so leaves do have elasticity, but it just looks a little different than other things. So through my research, I learned that air resistance has been a big factor in birds' evolution. And birds basically have evolved to make their bodies more streamlined, so it's more efficient in the air, and air resistance isn't acting on it as bad. And it's the same concept as how if you're driving a Lamborghini, you're going to have less air resistance than if you're driving a Mack truck, because the air can just glide right off of it, whereas if it's a truck, it's just going to hit it and it's going to push and be really hard. Okay, so when an object is in the water, the water is acting on that object with fluid friction. And as a swimmer, I encounter this all the time. And basically that is the force that's acting on it. So when you're swimming and you, like for instance, you push the water, the resistance you feel is fluid friction, my bad. Okay, so for the white-tailed deer, I couldn't find a good acceleration, like a good average acceleration. I found an average speed, and that's roughly 35 miles an hour in short bursts, and then around 20 or so sustained. And I guess no one's tried to experiment with that to figure out the acceleration, but the speed of a deer is about 35 miles an hour. Okay, so the inertia one was a little confusing. It was hard to find a clear answer, just like some of my questions, because the questions I'm asking are very specific. But what I found detailed that when a tree is shaking and the tree shakes, but the leaves are at rest, this is due to the inertia of the tree. So I cannot clearly answer my question of if trees have inertia, but that's just what I found. Again, I couldn't find a clear answer to this question either. What is the reaction of a tree falling? And I found an example online that reads, if you try to push a tree, the result will be that the tree will remain firm and you will move backwards. So I guess when you cut a tree, when a tree falls, the reaction would be the dirt moving backwards. Okay, so the friction that is present on a plant is called static friction, and that's just what I found from my research. Static friction is what's preventing the plant from like sliding away, moving away, just like falling through the soil, and that's what's keeping it in place. Okay, so when I researched it online, I found that the average fly has a mass of about 12 grams. And that part's pretty self-explanatory. I just needed to find the mass. And that's what I found.